It is 4:12 in the morning. I went to sleep at about 10:30, woke up at about 2:45, and then called it about 30 minutes ago and decided to try to get this week's video out. And I wanted to do a little recording here at the minute to talk about the insomnia, and some of the things you can expect from different styles of training. So let's look at this here. Right now, we just finished week 6 of 8 of training for this competition. Everything's been going up. Deadlifts up to 90% for singles, be up to 95% next week. Overheads up past 100%. We are dealing with the heavy bags and so on and so forth. And so this is a pretty high intensity zone for training. And what I've found with my training is that the heavier the training gets, certain things just start to fall off the race car, so to speak. So let's contrast training like this with lots of high intensity heavy stuff with something like this. And this is the last revision of my off-season program. And the specifics here don't really matter, but it's just enough for you to look at this sort of range. Almost every training day is a 4x8 at 70% or something close to that. Nowhere near the limits for intensity. And after a workout like this, so I go in and I do a bunch of reps and I accumulate a lot of good volume, 90 minutes to 2 hour session, maybe 25 sets. We get home from that and appetite's really high. My joints are feeling okay and I sleep really well because I've just generated a big calorie deficiency and really not much more. There's not a lot of tax from a CNS perspective. And so I run this to gain weight and to recover for months at a time between competitions. When it's time to train heavy though, something I expect and doesn't really worry me at this point is that as I lean into that heavier, more CNS fatiguing training, my sleep is going to get worse, my appetite's going to go away, and my joints are going to start to feel nauseous about 6 to 8 weeks into anything sort of serious. We expect it. We don't panic about it. In fact, we plan for it. I know that once the training gets heavy, I'm going to start losing weight in a somewhat uncontrolled fashion. However, I compensate for that by gaining a bunch of weight during the easy times. And so, I'll tell you this. Last summer of 2024, I weighed in for the Summer 11 Strongman competition in Peaster at 263. And I competed in the 275 class. That was July of 2024. By February of 2025, I weighed 310 pounds. And I did that knowing that my job's busy season is February to May. I always lose weight February to May. Training always takes a hit. And when I train heavier, I always lose weight as well. And so I built up this huge margin during the off-season training such that when crazy hit and the appetite went away and the sleep went away and all that, the body weight fell, but it didn't fall back to 263. It fell to 285. And I'm feeling pretty good at 285. So we're holding right now at 285, 290, doing what I can to keep the calories up, doing what I can to get as much sleep as possible. But all this to say, if you find something similar when the training gets heavy, don't panic. Just realize there's a season for everything. And we're not going to be sleepless with crashed appetites and sore joints all the time. You can't be, right? Just put a fence around your stupid. Keep it in there. And after competition's done, let's go back to the things that we know help us sleep. So with that, I want to jump into what week 6 looked like for us. And it was an exciting week. We went in on Tuesday and got our cluster volume done conservatively on overhead. And I think that was a good call. Whenever you have 2 training days for the same movement, so let's say you're doing 2 deadlift days or 2 press days, naturally one of them is going to become the emphasize day and one of them is going to become the support day. So main day, support day. If your main day is going really well, I'll tell you right now, don't change a thing on your support day, right? So my main day for overhead is Saturday. If you're coming in on Saturday and you're smashing 10, 20, 30 pound PRs every single Saturday, don't raise the weight on your support day. Don't do it. Because there's that stupid monkey brain thing where we think, well, if I, 6x2 clusters at 225 was good. What if I raise it to 255? If something's going well, don't change a thing. That's kind of one of the overarching rules around here. So when I went in for the cluster volume there, I felt strong enough to do a lot more weight, but I kept it at 235. I think that was the right call. Raised the weight on my behind the neck press for some volume and then called it. You'll see on Thursday, we needed to do 4 sets of 1 at 90%. 90% of what? Well, if you look back on here, this AMRAP on week 3 established a new training max for the Mammoth Bar deadlift because I don't have a competition history on that. That gave me an E1RM of 640, which I plan on being my second attempt in competition. That seems to be a good assumption so far. So last week I hit 3 sets of 1 at 580. Now I gotta do 4 sets of 1 at 580. It's a very high percentage for me deadlifting from the floor, and you'll see it went pretty well. Moving on to Saturday, got to take a heavy single for 2. I got a little bit stupid and decided to find out what was there 20 pounds up and surprised myself in a good way. Sunday rolls around, my second press day, had to hit a lot more sandbag than I'm doing in the past. I only had about an hour and 15 to train. So I'm not going to work up on deadlift and do sets of cross and sandbag and keg and front squat and accessories in an hour 15. I wish my conditioning was that good, but there's just not enough time to change implements and load the bar. And so I knew I needed the kind of passive erector training and stimulus from the deadlifts. So I subbed out the plate loaded rows for barbell rows, and then I really prioritized the sandbag work, which I think was the right call. Other than that, we're just doubling down on the morning cardio going into week 7. Next week is the last week of really heavy training, and then I get to deload and coast into this competition. And man, I'm really looking forward to going back to more off-season style training, get my appetite back up, get my sleep back in order.
It is Tuesday, 10/7/25. Had a good day at work today. Good amount of time on the road today. Lost a few pounds over the weekend. Not too worried about it. Weighing 287 today. Today I need to hit some volume on behind the neck split jerk. 6 sets of 2. And with how well things are progressing with that lift, I'm not going to change much from last week. I'll just go 5-10 pounds up from 225. Clock that. Raise the weight slightly in behind the neck press, and probably call it there after a couple of accessories. It is Thursday, 10/9/25, first lower body day of the week. Today's the heavier of the 2 deadlift days. So last week I hit 90%, 580 for 3 singles. Today I'm going to hit the same thing for 4 singles. And I've been watching some other folks train for this one. In general, if you're hitting your deadlifts fresh, I don't know what sport you're training for, because there's almost zero situation where deadlifts are going to be your first event of the day. In almost every case, it's a little on down the way, so you got to train it tired. That's why we're doing the keg runs and the sandbag work and all this other stuff, front squats, before we deadlift, is to make sure by the time we show up to that bar, we're mimicking some of the feeling we're going to have on competition day. There's already some fatigue, because if you just hit it fresh, you've got a lot of this pop and this explosivity and this confidence that it's a unique feature of, being first thing in the morning and nothing hurts you. So the purpose of all this stuff I'm doing before deadlifts, other than shoring up some weaknesses and working on joint health, practicing things, it's more so just to make sure that by the time I take a hold of that deadlift bar, I'm nice and tired, and so that feeling doesn't catch me off guard on competition day. But for now, we're gonna do our keg runs, test the lungs a little bit, jump into some pause front squats, and then load up that mammoth bar and see what's there today. It is Saturday, 11/11/25, upper body day, heavier the 2 upper body days. And today I need to go for 2 top singles at the behind the neck jerk movement. And so last week I got a 20-pound PR or so. And I think the amateur move is to go and bump it under 10 to 20 pounds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the same weight, 295, for a couple of singles, try to make it look easy. Now, let's talk about the bar that I'm using. The gym here, Metroflex Weatherford, has a tape color code system. And so these yellow barbells are of standard quality. They're good for everything, but you shouldn't use them for rack pulls or shrugs or anything that might bend the bar. And then there are green barbells for all and every use. So I've got a green barbell here, but as you can see, and as it's very apparent in my videos, this sucker is bent. It was definitely bent when I started using it for behind the neck jerk, but I sure haven't helped it. So my wife and I are looking on Facebook Marketplace, going to find a barbell of comparable quality, and I'm going to replace this when I'm done with my prep. This one's already beat up, so let's limit the damage to 1 barbell and then throw a new one in its place when we're done. little bit short on time today. Now that the keg runs are out of the way. Looking at what's the best bang for my buck in here, it's going to be sandbags. I've neglected that training a little bit. Sandbags, and since we're not doing the deadlift, we're going to move the row from the plate load machine over to a barbell just to get the erector some more work, as if Strongman doesn't work them enough, right? And then we're going to have some fun. Probably doing some sandbag doubles, supersetting with that, see if we can't get out of here within an hour 15 or so.